For a lot of you, you're probably going to cringe as I pour this nasty water in here, but it's the best thing I could possibly do for the aquarium on about 5 different levels, and I'll break all that down for you. Hey, it's Brock here with Uncommon Aquatics, and today we are going to be infecting this 110-gallon with creepy crawlies, or as I like to call it, stalking microfauna. My last video took this new 110-gallon acrylic aquarium and set up the aquascape. I said the word new just now, but it's obviously an old used tank. It's got a bunch of scratches in it. Got it super cheap. Reused all the plants and mostly all of the decor and spent almost nothing getting this beautiful setup. I'm really proud of the way it looks, and I think it's going to be awesome once it fills full of plants. So normally the next thing that people would probably do is start adding fish. But I'm not going to. We're going to put some living creatures in it, but it's not going to be what you think. And the reason is I want to build out my food web, and I've talked about food webs in other videos. A food web is all the layers between your beneficial bacteria and your fish. In between there, you have all these other layers like snails and shrimp and isopods and scuds. All of those different things should be in there. And if you stock this full of big predatory fish, then you try to add your microfauna, they won't have the opportunity to get down in the substrate and build up colonies, get hiding places, and breed and all of that sort of thing. So I think it's important to introduce those microfauna first. Because I've got some other aquariums, like this one back here. It's stocked full of fish, and I'm not sure. I've got a plan of what I'm going to try, but I'm not sure if I can really get a culture built up of microfauna in there. So let me show you where we're going to get our microfauna and how we're going to not hurt the aquariums we're pulling from. So these 4 tanks here are 5.5-gallon aquariums, and they are primarily shrimp breeding tanks, but they are also packed full of microfauna. Now, getting the creatures, the organisms, out of these tanks seems a little tricky. At first I thought, well, I'll just use a turkey baster. I actually have a Fluval branded one. It's just basically a turkey baster. I thought, well, I'll just use this and I'll just suck these guys out. And even though there's thousands of microorganisms in here, they bury themselves in the substrate, and you can only get 1 or 2 at a time. And I want to get 50 of them. So let me zoom in and show you these organisms first, and then I'll show you my plan to get them out. Okay, we've got some little tiny snails. There's a shrimp. Oh, so that's a scud or an isopod right there. You see that shrimp at the front. See what kind of footage we can get here. As I zoom all the way in here, you'll see little specks floating around. And if you didn't know better, you might think those are just like debris or uneaten food or something in the water column. It's not. Those are microorganisms. I'm pretty sure that's Daphnia. The 2 smallest microorganisms that I ordered were called Daphnia and Moina. And I put those in these tanks, and I can see little specks swimming around. So that's what's in there. Oh, right here is a scud or an isopod swimming around. I believe that would be a scud because it's free swimming. The isopods are more creepy crawlies. And when we talk about fish illnesses, Father Fish had an interesting video about why, if I took a fish from in here that had ick and put it in my pond, probably all my fish out in the pond would not die from that ick. And the answer for why is there's 1 million different creepy crawlies in my farm pond that would eat that ick bacteria. That it's not I don't think it's a bacteria, it's more of a parasite. Whatever it is, it burrows into the fish, then it stays there for a couple days, and it falls off and it reproduces in the substrate. And while it's in the substrate, that's the opportunity for these other microorganisms to feed on the parasite that's making our fish sick. So parasites are naturally occurring. All of these things exist together, but one of them does not go crazy and overpopulate everything because it's a web, it's a food web that's all tied together. So what we're going to do right now is harvest some of our food web from these aquariums and move into the 110 gallon. Along with that, we'll be getting snails and bristlenose plecos and all kinds of different creatures. As I was listing off the types of organisms we have in there, I didn't cover everything. We've also got blackworms that I want to get. So my plan right now is to just take a cup here, a little solo cup, and a bucket, and with all 4 aquariums, I'm going to scoop some gravel. I'm going to try to shoo my shrimp away. I want to keep each color shrimp in here if I can. But if I get shrimp, that's okay. But I'm going to get a big scoop of this gravel substrate and probably 2 or 3 scoops. Take like 1/3 of all the gravel out of each tank. Put in this bucket. And then I'm going to use this to seed the new aquarium. And then we'll replace. As I do that, I can see worms coming up. Look at all those black worms. That's gold. And all this mulm, where you see all that detritus and mulm, to me, that's liquid gold. And this water, you're not going to be able to see it. Let me aim down. See how dirty looking that water is? Some people would say, that's nasty water. Why would you put that nasty water into your brand new aquascape tank? Well, this is liquid gold for an aquarium. This is what you want. This nasty water is what you want in your tank. I'm going to repeat that process with all 4 aquariums, and I'll be back for the rest of the story. But now that I've removed a bunch of substrate from each aquarium, I'm going to add a couple cups of substrate back so that this can start to build up the biofilm on it and be a breeding ground for more microfauna. Now, before I go on to the big tank, I'm going to do water changes in all of these, get them cleaned up a little. I know this is going to seem crazy to some of you guys, but I promise you, this is the way to get it done. By the way, I've had some people ask how I do water changes on these microfauna tanks without sucking out all the microfauna. I put this filter sock over my python and then just suction it out like normal. This keeps any shrimp or scuds or anything from getting sucked out. Okay, so I got the water change done in all of these. This water should be really perfect for the organisms in here, even though it still looks a little hazy, and I need to clean the glass. All of this glass has some algae on it. These are, I mean, I can see all these microorganisms all over the place. My cherry shrimp have babies in here, which I did not know. There are tiny, tiny little cherry shrimp. So all of these are doing great. Let's move over to the big tank. So we've got this beautiful aquascape that I'm so proud of. And to a lot of you, this is going to seem sacrilegious. But now I'm going to pour this nasty water in there. And you can see it's kind of got a brown tinge to it. It's going to make this water look gross. And as I pour it, I can see, well, there's a snail. I didn't know I had any snails. There's some blackworms. I can see blackworms floating around. There's that nasty, molmy water. There was a yellow shrimp. More blackworms. It's got to be hard for some of you to watch me pour this nasty water in, but I promise you it's good for the tank. So now what we have is this much gravel substrate in here. And I'm going to pack this back into the corners, and then I'm going to cover it so that it can be a breeding ground that the fish can't get access to. So I shook some of that substrate into this corner. Now I'm going to shake some of it into this corner. Now I've kind of packed some of that into this little hole. and I'm going to put this piece of slate over it. I've got a bunch more of it packed down into this corner here. I'm going to find another piece of slate. I've got some chunks of slate in some other aquariums. I'm going to lay that slate across where I've got my pile of gravel, put a piece of slate across it so those can hide in there and reproduce in there without worrying about the fish. Here we've got these guys. Right there. Right there. Now, some people will say that, oh man, if you get those scuds in there, they're going to hurt the population of your shrimp. Well, I am going to get more shrimp and put in here, whether it's out of the other tanks or ordering them separate. I am going to put a bunch of shrimp in here, but the shrimp are not more important to me than the scuds. I think they're both equally valuable to the aquarium, and I want to have some of both. And I think that both populations can thrive. You just won't see either population completely explode as fast. Next, we have 6 snails, and the lighting's not great where I'm set up, but they're just tiny, tiny little snails. I know for a fact I got 1 orange shrimp earlier, so I'm adding 3 more orange shrimp. So now I'm putting 4 orange shrimp in here. I'm sure I got at least 1 male and at least 1 female. So we're likely to see our shrimp population grow. I went down to my father fish aquarium to get Placosimus, and there are tons of this size of snails. So we're getting 6 more snails I'm putting in here. Okay, let's see if we can get a look at this guy. In here we have a little tiny bristlenose, super red bristlenose pleco. So the average person, maybe even the average aquarium hobbyist, would walk up to this tank and say, why don't you have any fish in there? And my answer would be, this thing is teeming with life. And that life is establishing itself right now, and very soon we'll be adding some bigger organisms, some actual aquarium fish, some pet fish to it. But I think what I did today is just as important, maybe more important, and it's the best thing to do before adding your favorite pet fish. And some of you may think I made this aquarium worse. I am now very excited about setting up this aquarium. I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.